Hey everyone, welcome back to the Nello Reads channel. Today we'll be browsing through some r/ProRevenge stories. Our first story of the day comes from CMSRN. Cheating student thought he had me fooled, fell right into my trap. So, I am a cancer researcher and a guest professor at a university school of medicine where I teach my specialty, imaging. Besides the usual acquisitions of medical images using MRI, CT, etc., imaging has a lot to do with image processing. Some days, I am just a glorified programmer/IT guy, and as anyone who has ever programmed anything will tell you, coding is a very personal activity. With enough experience, you can tell who wrote what just by looking at the lines. I am also in my late 20s, and I am not native to this country, and it's my first year as a guest professor. So some students look at me as this inexperienced, gullible foreign guy. As part of my module's grading, the students have to submit 2 reports that weigh 10% each of their final grade. These reports are about image processing, and they have to code a fair bit. As usual, there are students that make an effort, some do minimal work, and then some cheat/copy. As I was grading the reports, I noticed a small group of students who found reports from previous years online and literally copied and pasted those reports, changing only their name. It was a facepalm moment because those reports were not even good and had a lot of errors. You see, in order to establish a baseline for my grading, I browsed previous year's reports, so I knew what to expect from the students of this module. Naturally, I graded them all with 0 and kept working my way through grading the reports I had left. Meanwhile, the students casually asked me in the halls how were their reports. Of course, I can't comment on that until I release the grades. One guy who had copied from another report, 98% match on a plagiarism checker, asks me when I will release the grades and comes up with the story that he worked really hard on his reports. He says his exam hasn't gone so well and he's hoping that the grade on his reports are enough to get a pass. I mean, submitting another person's work as your own is very wrong, but it was an online submission and impersonal. Right now, he was just lying through his teeth and to my face. I could feel my blood boiling, but I didn't lose my composure and decided to come up with a plan. I knew that my exam was the last exam of the semester, and after that, the students usually go home or family vacations while they wait for their grades to be posted online. So I graded the exams and input their grades into my Excel with their report grades. 4 students had 0s due to cheating on their reports, and if I instead changed it from a 0 to 50%, they would barely fail the module, but they would fail nonetheless. So it was on. In order to be fair, I bumped everyone else's grades. A bunch of people with miserable reports ended up barely passing because of my grade bump, but even though their reports were bad, it was their own work and not copied from anywhere. You see, students are entitled to make an appointment to review their grades after publishing and before the grades are locked for the year. Basically, they sit with me, we go through their exam and reports, and their goal is to convince me to give them extra points in hope that they pass the module. I knew the cheaters would come. After all, they think they fooled me once already, and they still have half the report's points to bargain for. So I just waited for their emails. Lo and behold, they write me the same day the grades go online, saying how hard they have worked on their reports and that they don't understand how they only got 50% and that they wanted an appointment. I was ecstatic. Sure, let's review your grades. Do you remember that my exam was the last one? Well, they were already on vacations, some very far away, and begged me for an online appointment. No can do, university policy. Moreover, you have 3 days to show up for your appointment, otherwise the grades are locked. This was all also university policy. So here they come, cutting their vacations short and catching planes. Some spent hours in buses and trains to make it in on time. I know what many of you are thinking. They come, I show them the plagiarism checker results, and reveal that I know that it's not their work and send them on their way. Well, I considered it, but I had something better in mind. Those appointments usually take 10 minutes. I show them their work with my notes on what's wrong/right, and then try to find some inconsistencies in my grading and bargain for more points. I won't be giving them that opportunity. So one by one, they sit with me individually, and I go through their exam and reports. Remember that they copied the reports and copied bad ones with lots of errors? I ask questions. Lots of them. Why did you do this? What is your reasoning for this? They don't know because it's not their work. They mumble random stuff because they don't know what to answer. Point by point, mistake by mistake, I explain why it was wrong, how it should be done, lecturing the same material that they had already been lectured on during class. I make it long, I make it boring, I make it painful. I spent hours with each one of them throughout those 3 days. They always come with the same, "I worked so hard on this," and a little smirk on their face, because they thought it should be really easy to fool me, the gullible foreign professor. As the hours go by and I am walking through the airs, one by one, I could see their expression change little by little, their hopes of passing being slowly crushed. They slowly realized that I knew they cheated and I wasn't going to give up any extra points. At this point, they tried to cut short their appointment and leave, and I wouldn't let them. "We need to finish the review of your grades. It's university policy." And I just kept going, extending their misery for one more hour or two. It was legal torture, plain and simple. It was glorious. At the end, every single one of them left with a crushed soul look in their eyes and a fail in my class. They knew that I caught them, that I baited them and they fell for it. They ruined their vacation and their family vacations, spent money to travel back and forth, wasted precious summertime, got bored to death, and have nothing to show for it. And next year, they will have to repeat the module with me. I hope you enjoy your summer. See you next year. I took the matter to my boss, who is their course director, and he told me not to report them because the university wants to avoid any kind of legal action at any cost. I couldn't even accuse them of cheating. Now, with plagiarism checkers getting so good these days, I can't even imagine somebody just copy-pasting something and submitting it. Like, seriously, it's not that hard to do at the very least some light rewording. You know, I get that that's more difficult to do with coding, but still. I've got to say, though, the punishment may seem harsh, but this professor literally could have reported them to the university and been done with it. He probably saved a few students from potentially being kicked out of the university, especially if they've been caught for things like that in the past. Our next story comes from Log Leader. Made my ex-boss lose $25,000 on his salary. I used to work at a Wendys as a manager. It was a crappy job, but my general manager was nice and most employees were easy to deal with. All this started when I was already working about 65 hours a week. I was offered a $100 bonus to work one of my only days off. I decided to do it, and later that week, before I had even been paid, I was asked to come in again. I said this time I would like $150, as at this point I had worked almost 23 days without any days off. They said they'd do it, so in I went. Cut forward 3 weeks, I've been asking about my money for a while now. I am told by my general manager that I could speak to my district manager, as he would be in later that night. The conversation goes like, "Hey, do you know what's going on with the bonus? I'm owed $250 for both the days." Well, that's why I came here. The store has been having trouble making money. So basically he's telling me that my performance isn't good enough. At this point, I'm working dinner rush, and the whole night with me are 3 others. My girlfriend, best friend, and other friend that has grown close. The district manager says, "Your shift isn't making as much money as others, and your drive time is higher." I respond with, "Well, we are doing all we can. It takes extra time when we only have half the number of people with the same amount of customers." The district manager says, "That's really no excuse." I say, "When am I going to receive my bonus?" My DM was a very sheepish man, so he is very obviously scared when he tells me this. "We cannot give you a bonus until the revenue rises and drive time goes down." I am speechless at this point. The rest of the conversation was a blur. I grew up on the south side, and you didn't mess with people's money. A day passes, I've had time to collect myself and speak to my entire crew. Everyone agrees to walk out with me, so I call my district manager. The phone starts to ring, but then it just cuts off. He declined my call, so I called him again, and again, and again. Finally, I leave him a voicemail. "Look, Jacob, you need to talk to me. You have until 8:45 to call me back, or all of night crew is done." At this point, it's 7:30. I go into my office and start watching my boss's email. She leaves it open and logged in. I figured he would probably email her before calling me. Around 20 minutes of watching this email, and boom, an email pops up. "Emergency, Lonnie." The idiot put my name in the email, so of course I read it. Long story short, in the email, it was him trying to make sure my general manager was going to be ready to go to work, aka he wasn't going to call me or give me my money. So I get all my people together and we walk out, leaving everything out. All the meat, all the toppings, the fryer, everything. The next day, I turn in my keys. About a week later, I'm called by my brother, who also worked at the store. He tells me Jacob lost all of his stores. He has to go back to Indiana. If you don't know, district managers' pay is based on the amount of stores they have and how much they make. When he moved to Indiana, his wages got reduced from $65,000 to around $40,000. All this for $250. I'm pretty amazed that not only did the district manager refuse to pay OP his money after completing the work he was supposed to, he said, "Oh, actually, now you get your money after sales go up because we're not making enough money." Well, maybe they'd be making more money if they stopped spending all that money on people who came in on their days off and just hired more people. I don't know, just some food for thought. Get it? Because it's a Wendy's. Anyway, the third story comes from Big Capper 69. I won over $5,000 in court after a car accident that I caused. Okay, so a little bit of info before I get into the story. Also, sorry this might get a little long, but I hope it's worth it. I, 22 male, work construction and run a few crews. I'm a foreman because I've been working in this field since I started working summers when I was 14. That's legal in my state. With this being said, I have a lot of experience and get paid really well. For my job, I need a truck that I can pull a lot of trailers and also get into a lot of sketchy job sites, especially in the winter. So I drive a new lifted pickup, F350. Anyways, let's get into it. So about 4 months ago now, I got off work one day and just didn't feel like making dinner. So I decided to go get myself the trusty Big Mac at McDonald's. Well, after I got my order, I was going to pull into the parking lot to drive home, and I was looking hard over to my left to see how busy the road was before I got over there. Well, I wasn't paying great attention to what was happening in front of me, and as I was creeping forward, someone who was in front of me was stopped and not paying attention either. I ended up barely hitting his mirror and scraping his door with my front end. I immediately reversed and hopped out, made sure the guy was okay, and apologized, knowing it was my fault, and I asked him if he wanted to call the cops. Let's call him Brent. Brent says, "Nah bro, we're all good. If you just get me your insurance info, I think we can get this taken care of." I was fine with that, as there was no damage done to my truck, and it's not required to call the cops for an accident if it occurs in a private parking lot. This is relevant later. We exchange info, and he seems pretty cool, so I tell him to go get the damage bid and I'll just pay in cash so my insurance rates don't go up as long as he's okay with it. He says that's fine, and we both just leave, and I feel like a moron. But all in all, Brent seems like a cool dude, and I just hope we can get it sorted out smoothly. About a month passes by, and I haven't heard anything from Brent or the shop I told him to go to. Honestly, I wasn't too stressed about this because if he decided to not get it done, that's on him. Well, he calls me up one day about noon saying he can't remember my name and he wanted to tell the guys at the shop who sent them there because it seemed like we knew each other. I told him my name and the guys at the shop, quote, gave him a deal. Pretty sure they say this to everyone. He sends me the bid for the damage, and it comes out to $2,403. This was more than I imagined, but I said to get it done, and I'd take care of the bill afterward, and that was that. He hung up, said it was cool, and I went on with my day as usual. Another month goes by, and I don't hear anything until Brent calls me up while I'm at work again and says, "Hey brother, I talked to the shop, and they said they can't get me in for another 2 weeks or so, and they may end up charging me more if they find more damage." I say, "Okay, sounds good, just let me know, man. I hope it goes smooth for you, and I'm sorry for the inconvenience." He seems to take it good, and I'm really trying to just be a good person. He responds with, "Well, after talking to my wife, I'm okay if you just wanted to write a check for $2,500, and we can call it even." This seemed odd to me, because why the hell wouldn't someone want their vehicle repairs all paid for? I said, "Okay, man, let's set a time and place to meet, and I'll get you paid." He liked the idea, and ended the call by telling me he would let me know. Yet another month passes by and I hear nothing again. At this point, I'm getting fed up and just want this situation to stop being over my head. He hits me up at 11 p.m. one night and asks if we can meet in town. I found this kind of disrespectful because I was nearly asleep and had to be at work at 5 a.m. the next day. Either way, I said it was fine and took my $2,500 cash and wrote up a quick contract saying that this payment would be accepted as payment in full for the damages, and by accepting it, it would release me from any and all liability. This was a pretty fair contract, I believe, as it was the deal we had already made over the phone, just in writing. I get to the place we suggested it as a meetup spot. I give him the cash and he signs the contract without hardly even reading it. And he didn't want the copy. This was a red flag to me, but I just assumed he didn't really care about it all that much. So I just send him a photo of the contract and go back home for some beauty sleep. As you can guess by now, another month goes by with me just living life carefree and not a worry in the world about this stupid car accident. Well, I go to check my mail, and I have a notice from this guy's lawyer that he is suing me for not paying after wrecking his car. This pissed me off, but I also knew I had plenty of text messages and a contract on my side. I immediately call Brent, and he blocks my number. Luckily enough, my girlfriend works for a lawyer, so I get him updated, and he says he'd love to help. He lets me know I saved my ass by writing that contract, as any contract worth over $500 is to be held up in any level court in my state. I immediately get to work on my revenge. I remember on the side of this guy's car, he had a business logo, and I took pictures of the damage. So I hop online, get to the BBB to look up who owns this company, thinking he surely couldn't own the business because he's such an idiot. I was wrong. This guy owns the company, and I can see that he has about 12 one-star reviews, all in dispute because of his shady business practices, telling people it'll cost one thing and then charging them 4 times what he said it would. Sound familiar? Remember when he said the shop may charge more than the original $2,403? That's right, he was suing me for $10,000. 4 times what the shop told him it would cost. Unbelievable. He was trying his same sneaky tactics on me. My lawyer takes note of this, and we show up to court ready for war. This guy is sleazy, and when we get there all set up, he says, "You ready to give me more of daddy's money?" with a smirk. I guess just cause I'm young and drive a nice truck and could afford $2,500. His lawyer gets up and starts trying to say BS about me hitting and running, and Brent barely got a picture of my license plate, to I tried bullying him into taking a deal for only $2,500 when the damage was clearly more than that. There were obvious holes in his story, and he really didn't have much to say. Just imagine the smile on my face as my lawyer lays out the printouts of our text messages and the physical copy of the contract, which was signed by Brent. His lawyer was ghostly white and looked sick. After laying out all of the evidence, my lawyer pulled out a little hidden gem: the printouts of all the complaints we found on the BBB and how he was doing the same thing to me. That was the final nail in the coffin, as the judge said he had seen enough. He asked Brent for any final statements, and Brent said, "I don't even have the $2,500 anymore. Can I just get that then and we'll be okay?" Literally admitting to the judge that he had received my money and his story was just a load of horse crap. I thought his lawyer was gonna strangle him. It was beautiful. The judge ended up ruling in my favor and demanded him to pay my legal fees as well as damages and lost wages because I had to miss work to be in court. The absolute sweetest part was that this particular day, my crew was on a very high wage job, and I was technically the one getting paid before I paid them out as subcontractors. This means I was to be paid $475 an hour, and this whole ordeal took about 5 hours. He ended up having to pay me almost $5,000. I don't think I've ever been so happy in my life. Now, I'm lucky enough to have never been in a car accident while I was driving, but just about everybody I know who has a story about whoever they hit or whoever hit them trying to pull something shady. Almost everyone who tries it also never really thinks that far ahead, like this guy. There was enough proof to bury the sleazy guy before they even stepped into the courtroom, but he was still cocky thinking he was going to win. What a crazy world we live in. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and feel free to check them out on Reddit in the description below. If you haven't already, make sure to drop a like, and I'll see you in the next video.